Okay, today we have here in the United States, this, I guess you would consider this a rather rare radio. It's a JIL, J-I-L, model SSB-M6. I guess they called this the Citizen. Like I say, I guess you would consider it rare in this country because this is not an American radio. So it was not sold in this country. This is a import or an export radio. It depends what direction you look at it. But it's a Canadian radio. JIL was a Canadian company. So now they use same 40 channels as here in the U.S. Now a lot of you might be thinking, a foreign radio, so it's got some weird circuit board in it. Nah, pretty much. If you deal with a lot of CBs, especially radios from other countries, you quickly learn that all radios are the same. It doesn't matter what country you're from. Yeah, pretty much the insides. There was a handful of companies that actually made the radios, or the boards, and everybody used them no matter what country they were from. And this radio is no exception. If you're familiar with let's say a Lafayette Telsat SSB, same board. If you're familiar with the GE, what was that, the 3-5825, same board that's in this. And it's a Cybernet. So now the cover's just sitting on it. I still have to clean up the faceplate. Just got done the transceiver alignment on it. Now, actually, it had a bunch of modifications I had to undo. The noise blanker switch was broken. And it's an oddball little switch. The length, I could not find a replacement for this thing to save my butt. Luckily, when I pulled the bottom cover off, of course it's a dual contact or double pole switch, and the back had fallen out of it. Well, one of the little wipers that is what actually shorts it's got 3 sets of terminals that wire is attached to, and it just has a little metal contact that slides and shorts out either these two or these two when you flip the switch back and forth. One of those was luckily still laying in the radio. And all that had happened is, and it's kind of common, if you ever bump these switches, that's actually a common problem. The metal housing just flexes out a little bit, the back of the switch pops out. But like I say, so it had one of those contacts, and for the noise blanker circuit, that's all it uses, is one half of that switch. So I was able to slide that little contact back in and actually then reattach the noise blanker, because all 3 of these switches had been repurposed for channel modifications. So the channel modification, that's all gone, pretty much all the modifications. The limiter's been re-enabled, and actually they disabled the sideband, the ALC, in this rather weird way. They just cut an electrolytic capacitor out. Who knows? It doesn't matter. It's all been undone. So I've just got the cover setting on it. Like I said, that all needs to be cleaned. One thing is I have to pull the faceplate back off. Luckily, it's just 4 screws, 2 on the underside here under the cover, 2 on the bottom, and slide it back out. I actually need to flip the noise blanker switch around. On is off, and off is on. Yeah, I've got the wires on. It's not so much upside down, because actually I just had all 3 switches out of the radio. And when I put that one back in, it didn't get put back in the right direction. I thought it was the right direction until I turned the radio on, and it's upside down. So, no biggie. Like I say, 4 screws, take the 2 screws out of that, flip it around, it'll be good to go. So let's get the cover cracked off of this guy here. And like I say, I think you'll quickly see that you're very familiar if you know Cybernet chassis. Yep. Nothing special here. Or, I mean, there are nice radios, don't get me wrong, but, the circuit board, same board used in, boatloads of other radios, and they were used in a lot of other radios because it was a very good platform. You might notice there's some black shit wrapped up here and some cloth insulating tape. That is actually the PA jack. Now, I don't know how many times this thing had been worked on over the decades, but apparently, I undid the channel modifications from the front switches. Apparently, at some point in time, there had been channel mods in the back of the radio. And they had a switch. They actually drilled one hole, moved the external speaker jack up to that hole, and I guess they had switches in the bottom too. But the CBPA's been disabled in this radio. Granted, most people never use PA anyhow, but that has been left disabled because actually the CBPA switch on this is still a modification. It's a 10 kc jump. Actually, it jumps down, but it's a 10. So that switch is flipped. It drops the frequency 10 kilohertz. But so, like I say, CBPA is still disabled, so that's sitting there. And all of this will be wire tied. Like here, somebody. Actually, this wouldn't have originally had wire ties. It would have had this kind of like dental floss, the original cloth wrap. So you can see somebody over the years has added wire ties in a few spots. So, yeah, I guess they had cut off some of the ties around here. So I'll get all of this rebundled back up. But, yeah, and someone had worked on the power supply in this. The regulator transistor has been replaced. Has a Sylvania ECG in it, which nowadays that's NTE. That had been replaced at some point in time. This capacitor was not up here. It was on the bottom of the board. And someone had this one in there. Yeah, they had an axial just kind of tacked on the bottom of the board, just hanging by these two leads. So, yeah, that wasn't very well. Yeah, no big. It's not like it ever fell off. But, yeah, I mean, just use a radio cap like it's supposed to have. And if the original cap had gone bad, which I think it did, because there was a little bit of... Yeah, it looked like the cap had started to leak, you know, when on the board there. When caps start to leak in old radios, I mean, anything this vintage, yeah, it should have the electrolytic caps changed. But definitely, if you've got caps starting to go bad, it's definitely the time to start changing them. And I had a couple of them, like, yeah, this is one of them. I don't know if we can get it to focus or not, but the rear lead, you see stuff hanging off of it there. It's actually green, because it's corroded. This cap's starting to leak. There were a couple of them like that. They were just starting to leak, and luckily it hadn't soaked down into the board and down in through to the copper, you know, to the solder side of the board, and started to do any damage to traces. But yeah, so when caps start to leak, just replace them. I mean, anything this old, it's going to need the caps changed anyhow, and it definitely, you should change them when you start to see them leaking. So, you know, instead of just replacing one, month later, change another one, a couple months later, change another one, you know, and eventually your radio stops working one day. Well, that's because it done ate a trace off the board. So do yourself a favor, change your caps when they start to leak. You'll not only that, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches. But so good working radio. This was actually a small, where in the hell is it? Right there, this small electrolytic back here. This is the one they had clipped actually to disable the ALC circuit in this. Never seen that mod before, but yeah, who knows. You're always finding new shit like that. Other than that, nice clean radio. Like I say, it's just basically a Canadian version of a Cybernet chassis. Show you the back here real quick. So I don't think there's a published service manual on this radio. I'll get the jack out of it. I was running it off DC. But I don't think there's a published service manual on this. I'm sure they had one at the time, but I don't have it and couldn't find a copy of the original service manual. Anybody else, if you ever run into that, and not necessarily just with radios from other countries, radios that were even, you know, FCC approved and sold in this country, if you run into a radio that you can't find a service manual on, if it's a Uniden or a Cybernet board especially, you can pretty much be guaranteed that board, there's very few Cybernet and Uniden boards that were only ever used in one radio. Most all of them were used over several manufacturers. This radio is no different. Now, there is a owner's manual online for this radio, and that actually came in very handy because I had to rewire all those switches in the front and figure out some of the wiring for the speaker, and I had to rewire the mic jack because it originally would have had a 5-pin. Someone had stuck in a 4-pin wired for, I guess that was Midland, and the owner wanted it just rewired to 4-pin Cobra Ranger style. But so, you know, wire colors and trying to figure pins and whatnot, yeah, that's one thing where it's really nice to have a factory schematic, because the schematic for the radio may be the same, but the wiring harness for accessories, you know, stuff up here on the front panel, that can change sometimes on a schematic. Some might have options, one might have like this, there's no ANL switch. The ANL is just always on this radio. It has a noise blanker switch. So, you know, controls may be different, so lack of or extra stuff. So that's where it's nice to have a factory schematic. Luckily, the like I say, or not the service manual, the owner's manual is available online for these. And the last page in the owner's manual has the schematic. So, yeah, if you own one of these, right there it is, schematic diagram, model SSB-M6. So it's not like it's not available. You can see I actually had traced out all the wires for like the mic jack and the noise blanker and tone switches so I could get all those rewired properly. But, so, you know, that's really handy. But this isn't going to, I mean, you could do the alignment off of this. It's a pain in the butt trying to trace through, see what transformers where. But like I say, the board itself is the same pretty much as every other cybernet that has this board in it. So there are lots of American radios that had that. So in the case of this one, just grab the service manual. Actually, this one's what, 153. And this has a General Electric 3-5825A. And if you look at that, yep, look down in there, crystal filter, final section, audio section, yep, exact same radio. So the alignment procedure for these two, for this radio and this radio, are 100% exactly the same. So using this alignment procedure right here is all you need. So, you know, that's just something to be aware of. If you get an oddball radio, do a little searching online. A lot of times if you punch in the circuit board number, you may not be able to find information on the radio itself. So now in the case of this one, all you had to type in is JIL SSB-M6, and one of the first 5 results was the owner's manual for this. Now, once I took the cover off and saw what chassis this was, I knew, yeah, I know what it is. But like I say, that's the one thing to do is, now on these, I think it's at the right front. Yeah, it's down in there is the PTBM, the Cybernet board number, but somewhere on the circuit board, same thing with Uniden. Uniden has part numbers on all their boards. You know, just find that board number. A lot of times if you punch in that board number into like a Google search, it'll bring up web pages and forums and whatnot where people are talking about it, maybe looking for a service manual. But as long as you can find another radio that used that same exact board, you can just use the service information for that. So get her flipped around the rest of the way here. So as we can see, there's no SCC ID number here, but we do have a DOC number, Department of Communications. So yeah, it's a Canadian radio. So, you know, made in Japan, fairly straightforward. Yes, I stuck some plugs in because, like I say, someone had drilled a hole here, moved the speaker jack up, and and these holes were just empty. I guess they had switches, and you can see somebody has what looks like low or in regular there. So I put the speaker jack back down where it's supposed to be. Since the CBPA is disabled, that jack's just left inside still, and I just filled the holes with rubber plugs, so don't just have a bunch of nasty looking holes there on the back. But there you go, nice little radio, works well. So really the only thing I got to do is just the final cleaning on it. I have to vacuum, still have to dust and vacuum out the interior. It's still got a fair bit of dust in there. But I'll get all that cleaned out. But it's now a good working radio. Like I say, I thought I'd show this one because, like I say, it is kind of odd in the United States to see one of these. You don't really see a lot of JIL. Actually, they didn't make many radios to start with, but the radios they did make were very good because they used Cybernet chassis. So basically all this one needs now is a good cleanup, and it'll be ready to send back to the customer, and he can put this back into use. So there you go, the JIL SSB-M6.